Good evening.
In the United Arab Emirates, food is cheap, cars are cheap, and accommodation is cheap. So what about computers? Well, I went to this location, which is basically like a computer heaven, to find out.
That's right.
For this challenge, I've set myself a budget of 50 Australian dollars. And due to me not exactly wanting to cut an entire fucking PC back through border security, I'm just going to be buying a CPU, RAM, and a graphics card. But what computer am I going to put these parts into? Well, yep, you read the title. It's our channel's favourite punching bag, the free PC. And due to the fact that it walked the earth at the same time as the dinosaurs did, I should be able to save plenty of money on the CPU and RAM due to their age, so that I don't have to cheap out when it comes to the graphics card. Computer Plaza. 2 stories of computer chaos. And the venue of this challenge. Surely I could find something here. Right? Wrong. An hour went by, consisting of me going into the shops with my pittance and being laughed at, and told that they don't sell old parts, and that I needed to leave. All seemed lost, until at last one man seemed to have what I was looking for. Or so I thought.
So, I found a Pentium dual core, but the fellow wanted 50 dirhams for it, which is around 20 Australian dollars, which is almost half of my budget. Not exceptional.
I regathered my thoughts in an ice cream parlour, and it's here I noticed something.
So, I have found that CPUs here are very expensive. Looking at the Facebook Marketplace. An i3 4130 costs the equivalent of 16 Australian dollars, which just isn't that good. We're going to go to a second tech mall, and we're going to see what we can find there.
The second mall didn't fill me with much confidence. It was less than a quarter of the size of the first one. But the first PC shop I went into seemed to have what I needed.
The man behind the counter pulled down a geriatric acer, and after we fadangled with the side panel for 15 minutes, we revealed that it had a socket 775 Intel CPU, and I was told it was a Core 2 Duo. This computer also had 4GB of DDR2 memory. Fearing I would find nothing else, I bought these items on the spot, for about 37 Australian dollars. Ouch. But a bigger ouch was the fact that I now had just $13 left for a graphics card, and worse still, no one seemed to have one for that money. I pressed on until the final store had seemingly saved the day. But what did I actually get?
Here is the bag of goods. I actually ended up with an Intel Core 2 Quad Q8300, a 4-core 4-thread chip from late 2008, running at a whole 2.5 GHz. A pretty good upgrade from that pathetic Pentium. 4GB of DDR2 800MHz RAM was also had, another good step up.
Smoking the RAM.
And finally, this mystery GPU. According to this sticker on the back, it's an AMD Radeon HD 2400 Pro, sporting a whole 0.5 GB of DDR2 VRAM.
So can it game now? Or does it even work? It did not. As it turns out, this stupid computer does not support the Core 2 Quad series, or the Core 2 Duo series, or even the Pentium dual core series. Maybe there's a BIOS update that'll allow it to work somewhere on the internet, but I looked and I didn't find one. So I scrounged through my random bag of discarded LGA 775 processors and found the fastest one that would work, a Pentium D 925. So yeah, we're talking some serious power here, but at least it is a dual core. Since I still had Windows XP installed on this hateful computer's hard drive, I decided to start the benchmarks there. The first game of benchmark was Battlefield 1942. It averaged about 64 FPS at 1080p with all of the settings cranked as high as they would go. It didn't really drop below the 40 FPS mark, and it could push up to around 80 when there wasn't that much going on. Overall, this was very playable, and it's a much improved experience over the 49 frames per second we received from the last iteration of this computer. So let's see how it does in golf game. I once again ran the golf game at 720p with all the lowest settings selected. It averaged a solid 42 frames per second, with highs up to 50 or 60 when you weren't rendering in a whole bunch of trees, and lows down to about 15 FPS when you were. Overall, the game was playable, and I still have no idea how to play it. It is once again a good step up from the 25 FPS on average that we had with the integrated graphics card on this computer. So the retro games work even better than before. Now it's time to push this thing, and myself, to the maximum pain zone. It's Windows 10 time. When I eventually got Windows 10 into a workable state, I noticed that at best it was slow, and at worst it was diabolical. One of the main reasons for this may be that only 3.2GB of the 4GB of RAM I had available was actually available. I'm not sure why this was, but that wasn't the biggest issue, as the CPU would shit itself far before we'd run out of RAM, even with only 3.2GB. I did test YouTube on this computer. 360p worked, but it dropped a lot of frames. 240p worked better, but it looked like ass. I also did a boot up test on this computer, and this is how long it takes. 1 minute and 55 seconds. For maximum performance, I decided to overclock the absolute balls off of this graphics card, but soon after doing so, it reached the temperature of the surface of Venus. I could dial back the clock speed some, or...
Oh, this is our idea.
I tried my summer car up first in 480p with all the lowest settings selected. As you can see, it got around 10 FPS on average, with dips down to 8 or 9 and highs up to 12. It didn't matter if the graphics card was running stock or overclocked, because we had run out of RAM in this situation. The CPU and GPU seemed to both sit around 70 to 80% utilization. This game was quite unplayable due to these factors. The long drive would work for about 5 seconds until it would crash. But not just the game, no, it crashed the entire computer. So I didn't really get enough time to properly benchmark the game. It crashed regardless what the graphics card overclock settings were, or resolution and settings used in-game. When it did work for about 5 seconds, it got around 15 FPS, but it would drop constantly to about 2 and freeze. It just wasn't a good experience. And it's a result of that hateful Pentium D. I really wish the Core 2 quad worked. The next game I tested was Factorio. For once we were actually able to use 1080p, but still retain the lowest settings. On average it got 22 FPS, with highs to 26 and lows to 18. Overclocked, it performed substantially better, with the average FPS going up to 29. It also maxed out at 35 and didn't go below our previous average of 22. The GPU was still the bottleneck, even overclocked, showing that if MSI Afterburner had actually worked properly, we could have seen even more performance here. Overall, Factorio was quite playable. Farming Simulator 2015 running in 1200 by 900 yielded us an average FPS of 17. Some scenes, like the scene here with the crops, would dip it down to a stuttery 9, and this scene here, with the lighthouse, would increase the FPS to our highs of 24. When overclocked, Farming Simulator 15 could reach highs of 31, averages of 22, and lows of 11. This was a much better experience. Well, I mean, getting diabetes would be a much better experience as well, but, you know, take that how you will. At stock clocks, Stalker Anomaly at 800 by 600 with all the lowest settings performed like crap. It did average 23 FPS with highs to 34 and lows to 9, but it stuttered like crazy. This was because the CPU was maxed the entire time. Overclocking the GPU didn't gain us any performance whatsoever. And that's going to end our gaming benchmarks off for today. And I can already hear your screams in the comments. Primitive PCs, what about the games you tested in the last episode of this free PC saga thing that you're shoving down our throats? Well, They were actually the first games I tried, but after the Windows 10 install, the disk drive decided to commit suicide. I attempted to solve this problem by adding another disk drive, but that one had long since already done the same thing. So I couldn't test them. And I can already hear your other screams. What about other games on Linux? And, well, I'll just show you why that isn't possible. So this little phenomenon became my life towards the end of the benchmarking phase. Every few minutes of it being powered on, it would just die. So I must sadly conclude that the free PC, or Mr. Finagler, as me and my cameraman have nicknamed it, is dead. This made me quite angry.
How long do you let this run? How long will you give it? Gotta save Mr. Finagler. Look, that goes back on now. Look at that, he's fixed. Put his face back on. Mr. Finagler's... Alright, Mr. Finagler's no more, man. Like, he's gone. He's dead, and we've killed him. This is only the start of the punishment, actually. Come on, round two. So, round two, bro, come on. So, computer parts from sketchy looking shops the size of a postage stamp in Dubai malls. Are they good value? No. Is it fun to get bad value products sometimes, just to fuck around with them? Yeah, this has been Primitive PCs. Good night.
Well, thanks for watching the video. Big thanks once again to my cameraman Austin for helping me film this absolute piece of shit. He's got a bloopers reel linked in the description below, along with all the other videos that I have on my new second channel. While you're down in the description of the video, you can check out my new Discord server. I'm sure interesting times will be had there. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one.